This video is brought to you by my patrons on Patreon. Thank you so much for your generous support in funding this channel and keeping it up and running. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of GAVONY Township, the show where it's not about me and my decks, it is about you and your decks. Whether you're a content creator that I'm collaborating with, someone who has won one of my Patreon giveaways, yeah that's right, those Facebook and Twitter giveaways have now moved to Patreon, or whether you're someone that supports me on Patreon and gets a monthly perk, such as deck doctors, deck techs, deck gameplay. For today's episode, we've got a deck doctor for Breffin, one of my original patrons. Actually, the very first patron I ever had. Big, shout out and thank you to him. He's also a content creator. If you're interested in watching streamers playing Commander, he does that over at Twitch. So that's Breffin. So he submitted a deck for me to do a deck doctor on. And normally he just supports me. He hasn't been as interested in deck doctors or deck techs or any of those other things, and that's how it is with my patrons. If you want the perk, it is theirs for you to have it if you want it. If you don't want it, that's fine too. I appreciate the support no matter what. So Breffin, he's been supporting me, and every now and then he will submit a deck. And so for today, for this episode, we've got a Marquise of the Black Rose deck. So let me go ahead and read off the commander. Marquise of the Black Rose, 4 mana for a legendary 3/3 human wizard with Dethrone, which is whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It says other creatures you control have Dethrone, and whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So this deck is, you'll notice already a little bit, there's kind of an artifact sub-theme for it. You'll see cards like this Aetherworks Marvel, Electrostatic Pummeler, Swiftfoot Boots, Gonti's Aetherheart. So you're seeing a lot more artifacts than I think you would see in a normal Grixis deck. And partly because this is also an energy-based deck. So we are playing cards that are using and generating energy, but a lot of them are creatures. So by them entering the battlefield or re-entering, thanks to Marquesa, we're going to be generating energy that way, and then using that energy to hopefully live fast. And so that's kind of the idea here behind this deck. We're trying to generate energy and use that to our advantage. So what I want to go ahead and do is I'm going to take a look at the deck, kind of going through it step by step and talking about what's card draw, what's ramp, what's fitting into other categories. So let's go ahead and start off the discussion here. We'll start putting things into categories. So we've got a nice little category here. We're going to start off with ramp. Obviously, we've got the mana base here. I think this is pretty good. We're going to put energy enablers and energy payoffs in the same category just because I feel like there's not a ton of payoffs. So we'll just keep them all together in one category. So here's another one, payoff for energy. We've also got cards here that are payoffs for playing an artifact heavy deck, so we'll definitely use that. Here we've got recursion, some more energy stuff. This is going to be an artifact based. Well, I guess this is maybe a token maker. Let's put token makers into this category instead. So here's ramp. Let's put card draw into a category. Elixir of Mortality. I'm not sure where we're going to put this one, but let's just hold on to that one for now. This one's another energy card, right? Yeah, that's another energy card. Spot removal. We'll put counter spells and spot removal in the same category. This one is ramp. Another talisman. Alright, so let me kind of scoot this over because we're running out of room here. We're definitely going to want to create a new category for us. So let's go and move all these here. And let's move these here as well. And you know what? Why don't we do this? Let's just move everything here. Alright, so pull from tomorrow. That's going to be some more card draw. So let's go ahead and put that there. Hangerback Walker, another token maker. So we're seeing a lot of ways to make tokens, which is pretty nice. This is going to be ramp. We're going to move this over here to the ramp section. Aetherworks Marvel, that's another energy card. Panharmonicon, I'm going to put that in the same category as Elixir of Immortality. I'm not sure exactly what we'll be doing with it, but we'll have that available for us too. I'm going to move that into ramp in just a second. This is definitely card draw. This one, this is a counter-based card. There might be a little bit of a sub-theme of counters. Yeah, here's another one, Unspeakable Symbol, so that's another counter-based card. This one's definitely recursion. It can also fit into the idea of card draw because you're paying 4 mana, but I think it's going to be a little bit more useful as the recursion category. What does this one do? This is energy, so let's just put that into the energy card category. Anger, I'm going to put this also with the other cards we haven't really put anywhere else. This one is I guess it's a board wipe here. It looks is what it looks like. We'll put that into the card draw section. I think this is pretty important. Being able to see all the different aspects of the deck one at a time will be pretty important in allowing us to find how things are being used, what the deck is doing a lot of, what the deck is not doing a lot of, and kind of working from there. Beacon of Unrest, that's another way of returning something from the graveyard. Same thing with this one. Some more spot removal. So it's a nice, good little, nice little spread of cards. I was thinking about putting the confiscation in the spot removal, but I think it works better in the energy area. This one is card draw, so I need to put it in the right spot. Another board wipe here. Also another board wipe. Cerebral Vortex. I guess this is in a way like card draw, but it also allows you to win the game if you need to. Some more counter-based stuff, or rather energy counter-based stuff. This one, I think this will be in like the haste enablers. I'm not sure how many of those we have. We do already have 2, so we might have another category for that. In just a second here, we'll find out. Move that there. Fabrication module. This one is also very much an energy card. Mirage Mirror, I'm going to put that into the kind of the random area for right now. And as we keep going here, we will find some more cards. I'm sorry, I've been putting some of these in the wrong section, so the card draw needs to go over here. Okay, Cyclonic Rift, that's another board wipe. This one's another way of using the energy counters. Another spot removal / counter spell. Thrumming Bird, we haven't seen a lot of proliferate. I'm going to put this into the plus and counter stuff. This is another counter spell, also works as a tutor. This is a tutor. I think I'm going to put that in a separate category here. This is card draw. This one, well actually let's put that with the energy stuff. Let's keep all the energy stuff together no matter what it does. Because really, we're trying to use this energy stuff in other ways too. This is going to be another haste enabler. So it looks like we're going to have enough stuff to have a haste enabler out on its own category. This one is Scribe. It also generates some energy, so that's pretty good there. And then we've got Ramp. So we've got a little bit here of Ramp. I'm going to move those Ramp options into this next category. Yeah, that should be pretty good. Alright. So we've got a little bit of tutors. Last category here, this is a Greater Gargadon. This one's I'm going to put in the kind of the random category here. We've got 3 haste enablers. I think this will be pretty important if we're trying to put those counters with Marquesa. So you know what? Getting the haste enablers will be pretty nice in allowing us to dethrone immediately. So that's also a +1/+1 counter based card. Demonic Tutor is by itself here, but I think that's fine. I think that's good to have that there. The 4 cards that I'm kind of like iffy on are these 4 here. Mirage Mirror, this is oftentimes being used as good stuff. Elixir of Vitality, I think this is a pet card of Breathin. And Greater Gargadon, I'm not sure how important a sacrifice outlet is. I know in Modern or in other places, a 9/7 is so great, but in Commander, I mean, it's just a vanilla creature. It's easy to block, easy to kill. So it's not going to be as important here. The sack outlet's pretty nice, but I feel like even then, there's probably better options. Although I guess you've got 1 mana for a sack outlet. That's not too bad. You can only use it 10 times, minus number of turns that you're actually keeping it around. So maybe that's one reason why it's. Well, I mean, it's okay here. So let's take a look first to see what does this deck need. What does this deck need more of? I think that the energy sub theme here is going to be great. I don't know how many cards are going to be available for us to really take advantage of. And I'm not even sure what's the best way to search for energy counters. Let me try this. Let me see if I can find them like this. Energy counter stuff. Alright, so we do find energy counters with the with brackets and the letter E. So let's see what we've got in the deck, what we don't have in the deck. I'm going to sort this by color, just so I can have everything that's not in the color combination. Pretty easy to find. So let's go ahead, and I'm kind of not sure here what's going on. I pretty much said it how I wanted it a long time ago, but it kind of reverted for some reason. So let me see here. Gonti's Machinations. This one's probably not that great, I think. This one, this is another spot removal, but it's a sorcery. And, yeah, I mean, that's not that great. Card draw is obviously pretty good. Recursion's also pretty nice. What does this do? Target creature can't be blocked, or can't block. Target creature gains haste. See, this one's pretty good. It allows us to generate energy counters, and also doubles up as a way to produce that haste that we were kind of looking for earlier. So you know what? I kind of like this one. We're going to go ahead and make this, we're going to add this one into the deck. Just because, again, this is a pretty nice card. Allows us to give haste as we need. And I like it. I think it's pretty great there. It's also good to have some more energy producers, energy users, and hasty things. What does this card do? That's the one we added. This one allows it to make itself get bigger. I mean, it could be a win con. You know, I say let's do it. Let's add it in. And let's see, we got to skip over the green because we don't have any green in this deck. Then Ether Hub's obviously in there. Now the Ether Sphere Harvester. This one allows us to have a flying lifelink 3/5. If that's what it were, like let's say it was a flying lifelink 3/5 with indestructible, right? Which is in a way like better than this card. It still wouldn't be good in this deck, so that's why I'm feeling like it's probably not that great. Consulate Turret. This was pretty good. It allows us to generate more energy. Yeah, I think this is a great card to add in. Deadlock Trap. This is another form of removal. We've already got that one and that one. And the last one here, the Multiform Wonder. Yeah, I mean, this was probably not that great either. It does allow us to generate more energy, and that's a lot of energy when it enters the battlefield. We generate 3. So, especially that we can kind of use it with Marquesa, so we can put the counter on it, pay energy. Let's see, we can pay energy twice. Yeah, we pay energy twice, that will kill it. And then it'll enter the battlefield again and generate more energy. So let's say there were a way that that it entered the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for some reason. Marquesa with that card and Multiform Wonder would allow you to actually go up in energy each round. That's pretty good, honestly, in my opinion. So there are 5 things here. Haste Enabler is pretty nice. This one is a way for us to win. If we're generating enough energy counters in a turn, this gets really big really fast. Consulate Turret, some more spot removal, same thing with the Deadlock Trap. Just some temporary removal here. And then the Multiform Wonder, I think this is a pretty great card for us to generate energy when it enters the battlefield. So I kind of like that. I think that's pretty nice here. Let me just see if there's anything else I would like. I mean, this is specifically because it's a creature. Let me just double check to see if there's any other creatures that generate a lot of energy when they enter. So this one generates 2. I like generating 3 per creature. I think that's going to really work out pretty well for our favor. Let's see what else there is here. This one generates 4. That's pretty good. The question is that worth it? It's also got the same kind of idea here. We're paying 4. We activate this for 3. We can have it enter the battlefield, kind of flicker itself with Marquesa. So I say that's great too. Also generating the exact same amount of mana, the same amount of energy per round. It's also just costing 1 mana less to do it. This one's some more card draw. I think that's great. I mean, you can never go wrong with too much card draw. This one generates 3 counters. It allows you to use those counters for scrying. I don't know if I like that one all that much. This one's for milling. I don't think those are all that worth it. I like these 7. Let's take a look through the energy producers and users and see if there's anything here that I'm not a huge fan of. I like these cards. I think out of all of these, the only one I would probably suggest taking out would be maybe the Elixir of Immortality. I think the other ones make a lot of sense. Panharmonicon obviously makes a lot of sense if you're playing a lot of creatures that will enter the battlefield and do stuff. I'm kind of curious about the token makers. I don't know if these are really all that worth it. I know Mere Battlesphere is a way that you can win the game pretty fast, but at the same time, does it really, do a lot with this deck? I mean, I don't even know. It does a lot with Marquesa though, so I guess that's one reason to use it. Hangerback Walker is kind of a weird thing. With Marquesa, it will return, but it'll be a 0/0, so it'll just die immediately again. So it's actually kind of like a non-bow here with the commander. And making those tokens, maybe not all that great. Sure, you make an additional token as it keeps dethroning, but again, it's not going to be easy for it to come back and stick around. So I feel like that's a little bit too much of a non-bow for me. I like Marionette Master. This one's really good. You're getting bigger with a dethrone, and you've made a lot of artifacts, not just from the Fabricate ability, but also from the rest of the deck. Excuse me. So I feel like that's pretty good here. Those are the 2 cards so far that I think are okay dropping. Cerebral Vortex. This one is a little bit so-so. It's 3 mana to draw 2 cards as a one-shot effect. I feel like that's pretty slow compared to Moriok Replica, where this you can actually use with Marquesa to continue to bring it back over and over. Same thing with the Muldrifter. This one proliferates, so it does a little bit more than that. This one also generates energy, which is pretty nice. Same thing with this one. This one, I think is pretty good because it allows you to draw a whole lot more than just 2, and then obviously Skullcamp's pretty good if you're playing a deck that's going to be, losing a lot of its creatures anyways. So I feel like the Cerebral Vortex is probably the worst one out of this one. Although it is good against an opponent who's drawing a lot of cards anyways, I just feel like there's probably better options in the deck. We've got 7 there, not to mention we've got cards in other categories that are drawing this card. So we've got so much card draw in this deck, I think we'll be fine in that, in that category. In terms of ramp, also we're okay there. I mean, if we take a look, we've got 8 cards in the ramp. That's great. That's perfect. That's what we really need. A lot of energy producers and users. That's what we really want in a deck like this. Recursion seems pretty nice too. I don't know how important it is, But I guess if you've got Marquesa and something happens, those creatures die, they're unable to come back, it is important to be able to get those cards back, because you're going to try to use those cards to your advantage. So I think that's going to be pretty important. Anger is kind of funny. I like this card, being able to play it down, and then people stop wanting to attack you because you can block and put Anger into the graveyard. So that's pretty nice. Drana does put a counter on everything. I think that is important to be able to easily put counters onto everything. Same thing with the Olivia, mobilized for war. It allows us to put counters on stuff pretty quickly. Swift Boots, I think everything else so far that I've seen is pretty nice. Yeah, so this is a very, very well built deck, I would say. Yeah, what can I say? I think this is pretty great. Nice little amount of ways to do Spark Mobile, especially Grim, which is a repeatable. They've got plenty of, Breffen's got plenty of counter spells here, which is nice. Yeah, I like this. This is looking pretty nice here. It's going to be tough finding, things to remove. But that's because of Breffen's deck building here. I'm just going to take a look through the rest of the counters, the energy counter things, because we want everything to find a good purpose in the deck. We don't want anything to be kind of so-so. We want it to really be a solid inclusion. This one's great. Extra turns are always helpful. This is recursion, which is nice. This one is also a really big production of energy from a creature, so that I think is fantastic. Let me see here. Choose a counter or on target permanent or player. Give that permanent or player another counter of that kind. So this one allows us to make tokens as we're putting counters onto our creatures. I think this is probably okay. It also has the ability to make to allow us to get more +1/+1 counters or to get more energy. I think that's pretty important. This is card draw, obviously pretty nice there. This is a way for us to save our creatures that maybe they're going to get targeted by something that's going to steal them. Also, it's an ETB that generates energy. I mean, this is just going to go crazy here. This is putting counters on creatures. This works really well, actually, with Marquesa. Marquesa right now is looking very, very useful for a deck like this. I think this is a fantastic commander for something like this. This one's great. It's an instant that allows us to deal damage to creatures. This one's some more card draw, which is always nice. This one allows us to get things for free. I think maybe better decks for it, but I mean, it's only 4 mana. It's also a way for us to use Marquesa and generate a lot of energy, so not too bad here. This one, I think, is probably a solid drop here. It does allow us to scry. It's pretty cheap, but at the same time, scrying is not important. Even the energy production is okay, but we'd prefer to have more creatures that will do that instead. So that's a card I can say we can drop. And I'm going to put this into this category temporarily, because we'll move it into the right category in a second. This one puts counters on it. It's got a double strike, but even then, it's just not that great. It doesn't really have any ways to get around blockers. And it's only making 2 when it enters. It's a 4-drop. I feel like this is a fine to drop as well. Let's keep going along here. This one allows us to have more attack steps. That's fantastic. This one can really do a lot of damage. If we can find a way to make sure that it doesn't get blocked, I mean, this is really good for us. Confiscation coup. I always love stealing cards that steal, so obviously that's pretty good. And then this one allows us to make more tokens with our energy. So that's 2 cards that we can drop here. So yeah, that's not quite enough here for those 7 cards that I'd like to add in. We are actually 2 away from having what we need. I think the Greater Garganon is fine to drop. It being a 9/7, it's being a 9/7 with haste because of the suspend, but at the same time, it's probably not all that great. Yeah, we can get it back with Marquesa over and over, but again, 9/7s, they're just pretty easy to deal with. Somebody could just have a token and block with it over and over. And it's also 7 damage is pretty easy to do to a creature. Destroying creatures, board wipes will do it. Doesn't enter with a counter, so you have to really find a way to get a counter onto it first. So it's a kind of a so-so kind of card, but I think it is worth it here. I think it really is worth it. Other than that, I think the Olivia, mobilized for war, this one's actually, in a way, kind of an okay card to drop. It does put counters, and it gives haste, but you have to discard cards to do that. And I feel like, sure, you get the option, but sometimes you want to discard, sometimes you don't. It's just, in a way, too much of a price to pay just for generating haste and giving a counter. I think both of those cards, both those effects, you can do probably a little bit easier than with just an Olivia. So maybe that's the one to drop here. I'm not 100% certain about that one, but that's the one I feel like could be dropped. Another option here is the Eldest Reborn, because someone could just destroy all enchantments or destroy target enchantment before we have the ability to return something from your graveyard. The other two chapter counters, chapter abilities, they're not really all that helpful. Making each opponent sacrifice a creature or planeswalker, making each opponent discard a card, not really that well situated for a deck like this. So maybe that's the card to drop. Other than that, though, I feel like this deck is pretty fantastic. I gotta say, props to Breath, and this is looking pretty good. Probably one of the the best energy decks that I've ever seen. And for a long time, I was thinking about doing energy, but I think this is great. I do like adding a little bit more energy in there just to give you more effects that are also pretty good. Again, with Marquesa, if we have enough cards that can allow creatures to enter with counters on them, it will work. I don't know how many there are. Let me see here. We're going to look for the word enter. We're going to look for the word counter. Let's see what we can find that say both of those abilities. So we're going to skip past the white cards because we're going to look down to the blue, black, and red ones. And then obviously we're going to look at a couple of the gold ones too. So skipping past the white ones here. Alright, so here's the blue ones. That one's not exactly what we're looking for. If I put in here +1/+1, does that allow us to find what we're looking for? And let's put creature as well, because we're looking for things that put counters onto creatures. So if I put it in this way, will I find what I'm looking for? Maybe. Let's take a look. So a lot of graft things here. That's not going to be as great for us. Evolve stuff is not good. So this is another thing that puts counters on itself, Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of an issue, at least for me, trying to find one of those cards. I know I have got one deck, there's one deck that has a good number of those, and that's a Sultai deck. So there's blue and black options, but I think all the cards I have in that deck are green. So, yeah, let's just keep looking here. I wish I could say here, creatures. Let's just try this. Let's try creatures, and then after this we'll go for each creature. Because sometimes it'll say creatures you control will enter with counters, or each creature you control will enter with counters. Alright, so we do see a couple of green cards here. We are not interested in the green cards, unfortunately. There are a good number of them, but we are not green. So Devour, we're seeing a couple of Devour things. Yeah, that's a counter-based card, but not especially helpful. That's for Kavu. This is more Devour and Bloodthirst and Riot. Yeah, there might not be a ton of cards in here that will allow us to immediately put those counters onto those energy creatures. And that might be a reason why we drop those two and keep doing something else instead. So more Devour. This is something we already have in the deck, but it's not going to be as helpful for this particular reason. We're trying to find something that allows other creatures to enter the battlefield with counters on it. So, for right now, though, it looks like just graft stuff. So if we include graft, let me see here. If we include graft, it would technically work. We would need a lot more sacrifice outlets, though, because... or you know what? Actually, technically, anything that's a 0/0 with graft would work. Because... No, because, hold on, we would remove that last counter and Marquesa would not allow us to bring it back. Never mind. Would not work. Man. If we find out something with graft that allows it to sacrifice itself, that would work. But other than that, I don't think this is gonna work out for us. Yeah, well, actually, hold on a sec. No, that's just a +1/+1. This doesn't give actually any counters. Yeah, it looks like we might need some more sacrifice outlets in a deck like this. I don't think we've got enough room for it, though, unfortunately. Yeah, Marquesa with sack outlets could work if you're getting cards to enter with counters anyways on them. But just from what I can tell here, it's not going to work out that way. Thankfully, we do have these things can already sacrifice themselves. And so at the very least, you're getting a free energy counter every turn. Not every turn, every round, compared to being every turn. Obviously not as great, but not too bad either, I think. Yeah, unless you've got something like the Unspeakable Symbol, then you've got a way to put counters on it. That would work. Otherwise, I just think we're going to have to find some other ways. So, yeah, I think this is pretty good. Drop these 7 over here. Add these 7 in. Some of these cards might not be too great, like obviously the Consulate Turret. You're only creating 1 energy per turn. It is a 3-drop, and you can use those energy. You use the energy to start dealing damage to Planeswalkers. If somebody has Planeswalkers out there, you can kind of deal with those. Same thing with the Deadlock Trap. If someone's playing Planeswalkers, you can make sure that it doesn't do anything. You just activate this at the upkeep. So that's not too bad. You can also get rid of creatures from being able to activate. So there's a little bit of versatility there, but if those two aren't really your flavor, those are obviously easy to drop. I think a lot easier to drop than the other suggestions that were added in here. This one I think is actually a really great card. I would love to see how that one plays out. Especially, you've got Dethrone, you're creating energy all the time in this deck. You can suddenly make that Territorial Gorger really big, and suddenly you've got like a 12-12 trample attacking your opponent. I mean, they might be in for a rough time after that. This one also giving haste is pretty nice too. So that's pretty much it for this episode of Gavony Township. I had a lot of fun looking at this Marquise of the Black Rose deck, figuring out what needs to be changed. But really, I mean, even if Bref had kept it the way it was, solid deck, solid deck. So those are just a couple of my suggestions that I think would make this deck a little bit better, because when it comes to energy, you really want to go as much energy in terms of energy production and usage as you can. Otherwise, you're going to find you're producing a resource that you don't need, you don't use, or you're wanting to use a resource you don't have, and you really don't want to find yourself in that position. So not only do you need to have enough spells and lands, you need to have enough energy producers and energy users. So it's going to be like a really kind of weird combination of different things, Bref. So I hope this has helped you. I hope if you're watching this and you're wondering what to do about a Marquesa energy deck, hopefully this helps you on that path as well. And I will see you in the next episode of Gavony Township. Take care.